G'day Noob, welcome to the Noob Spearo podcast. I am the show's host Shrek. Wherever you're listening in the world to this podcast, you're welcome. Welcome to get on board and get some stoke in you, learn some tips and tricks. Today we're off to chat with at Big Jake Lords on Instagram. This fella, he's awesome. Famous for wearing ridiculously thin wetsuits in freezing cold water. He owns a whole bunch of freshwater spearfishing records. He's jovial, he's always stoked, and his Instagram just keeps me buzzing. I love following along on his spearfishing journey, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode where we dig into a lot of his story. And if you love the long form chats, then definitely come along, follow Noob Spearo on Instagram, Noob Spearo, wherever you engage on the social media world. It'd be great to hear from you. There's also a Noob Spearo YouTube channel where these episodes get uploaded. Mostly the YouTube channel is audio, but if you do want to engage with comments and stuff, you can do so there, or the Noob Spearo community on Facebook. It'd be fantastic to hear about where you are in the world, where you listen to the podcast most of the time, because some of us do it driving, some of us do it chopping up the vegetables for dinner. Whatever your role is, I'd love to hear about it. Reach out to me. Hey, today, I've also got a couple of shout-outs because I've been neglectful lately, and I apologise to the community for that. A few episodes ago, I mentioned the idea of young fellas and ladies that are, teenagers, or whatever, want to make a bit of extra money. Maybe it's a fantastic initiative to start editing videos for people for a bit extra cash. Anyway, Josh over at Twin Palms Creative wrote in and sent me a bit of an email. Check it out, twinpalmscreative.com. He uses like WeTransfer, so you can transfer footage to him, and he charges you and can create videos for you basically. And I'm going to take Josh up on his offer. He's offered to make me like a 1 or 2 minute vid, and just to see what the sort of the quality's like. I'll fill you in on how that goes, but I've got to get organised and get him some bloody footage. But so thanks, Josh, for reaching out to that at twinpalmscreative.com. Podcast review, binge-worthy. I recommend this podcast to every skill level. The guests are amazing, and Shrek is amazing. Thanks for that, Mchama from the US. Awesome. On Amazon.com. Unfortunately, the softcover copy of Noob Spearo's book, 99 Tips to Get Better at Spearfishing, is not available at the moment due to some Amazon issues, which is quite annoying. However, it is in stock at adreno.com.au if you do want a copy. Anyway, Teardrop says the Curtis Creek Manifesto of Spearfishing. Good read from Shrek and Turbo. Coming from a fly fishing background, I can say it's the spearfishing equivalent of the Curtis Creek Manifesto. It won't win a Pulitzer, sorry Shrek, but it's fun to read, great pictures, and can reopen to any page and read for ages, and pick up some great tips for spearing. That's from Adam and SoCal, so appreciate that, man. Hey, I don't want to muck around too much. Let's get into Big Jake Lords, hear about some of his spearfishing adventures. Top man, love him. Again, follow him on Instagram at Big Jake Lords. Here we go. This episode of the Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by spearfishing.com.au. They've been on board for more than 100 episodes, and I'd love for you to shop at spearfishing.com.au. They have a price beat guarantee, hassle-free returns, flat shipping rates across Australia, and you can save $20. For every purchase over $200, if you use the code NoobSpearo, you save $20. Thanks for supporting the Noob Spearo podcast and shopping with spearfishing.com.au. Partners of the Noob Spearo podcast, Neptonics.com. Neptonics offers the best spearfishing gear, spear guns, carbon fins, spear gun parts and packages at the lowest prices. Go to Neptonics.com, use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off anything at Neptonics.com. NOOB10. Boom! G'day, Noob Spearo community. Today you're in for a treat. We've got Big Jake Lords. I've been looking forward to this chat forever. His Instagram profile's full of stoke about the spearing lifestyle, and he just puts out good vibes. So big welcome to the show, Jake, and a big welcome for Big Jake.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm humbled to be here.
Yeah, cool, man. Your spearfishing location and context is very unique. You're quite a bit different than a lot of the people we get on the show. Give us a rundown on where you live and spear.
Yeah, so I actually live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm typically spearfishing in high mountain lakes in either like Wyoming, Nebraska, mostly in Utah though. just because I live close. But visibility out here is depending on the season, and when I mean season, I dive year round. But visibility's anywhere from 15 to 20 feet, which is good. And then in some other lakes, you can get up to 30 plus feet.
Wow, that's phenomenal, Viz.
It is, yeah.
All right, and so, but you do dabble in the saltwater as well, like you travel and you go spearfishing in other places as well.
Yeah.
How does does it parallel, like between freshwater and saltwater? What's the difference for you?
I feel like the difference between freshwater and saltwater is like all my buddies that live in Hawaii and, other parts of the world are okay with, and they're in their 3 mil and 60-degree water, and I'm just in a rash guard, and they're all calling me crazy because I'm used to diving in a 45 to 50-degree water in a 3 mil, and then I dive anywhere from 36 to about 40 degrees in a 5 mil.
Right. I'm just pulling up some translations for me here. So 35 degrees Fahrenheit is 1.6 degree Celsius. And then you said and you're what thickness wetsuit are you in for that?
In a 5 mil.
Yeah, righto. And 50 degrees Fahrenheit is 10 Celsius. That's
which is a 3 mil for me.
You're a beast of a man. Jeepers, that's some you've got a high tolerance there for cold water.
I do, yeah. But like when I'm in salt water and the viz is, 20 feet, and I'm loving life because that's like unreal, like all the time. And you get my buddies out in Hawaii that are complaining about 20 feet visibility. I'm like, you guys, I would die for that.
Yeah, I have an appreciation for like lower viz as well, like in temperate waters, because like, I don't know, the spearfishing's different, but it's still really cool. Like 15 feet is really good hunting viz. Like it seems like you spook less fish in the dirty water. Do you find that when you get out to like Hawaii and some of the places with the wide open viz, does that affect you at all? Does it make it more difficult for hunting and stuff?
So I feel like when you're like in Hawaii, I feel like you have to dive deeper, because you get like most people can't hunt past 30 feet. I mean, most inexperienced divers.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, you get to the 40 and 60 feet is where guys kind of get out of their comfort range.
Yep.
Or in freshwater, I feel like the comfort zone is like 15 or 20 to 30 feet.
Yep.
And as far as like going beyond that, like it's kind of hard to say. So also I feel like elevation kind of makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like when I'm at sea level, I can hold my breath holds are a lot longer, and my bottom time is obviously a lot longer so I went spearfishing at 10,000 feet this summer, and it like you can hardly breathe up there.
Yeah.
Just walking around, it's pretty crazy to think.
Yeah, cool. Hey, how old are you?
So I'm 32 years old.
All right, cool. When did you start spearing?
So my first time spearfishing was 9 years ago, actually down in Lake Powell. I don't know if you've ever heard of that lake.
I have. They run the nationals there sometimes.
Yeah, they did freshwater nationals 3 years ago there. And I was on a work trip, like an incentive work trip, and one of my bosses brought like a little 6-foot pole spear with a 3-prong on it.
Yep.
And I had never seen anything like it. I mean, growing up here in Utah, like nobody, I mean, at least that I knew of, didn't even know what spearfishing was. So he took me out and showed me the ropes, and next thing you know, I'm plucking carp left and right. And after that, I was kind of addicted.
Yeah, nice. And carp, are they the invasive type?
They are. They're invasive, but a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually smoke them, and they're actually pretty tasty.
Yeah. It's amazing what fish you can smoke and they taste good.
Yeah. Everybody calls the carp out here the trash fish.
Yeah, righto. So with carp, you smoke them. What other sort of species there are you smoking?
Trout, walleye, bass, crappie, but it's mostly trout and walleye out here.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So
And all right, we'll get into some species. I think might leave some of the. Oh, actually, let's get into it. So you've gone over half a dozen sort of species there. Give us some size sort of ideas with how big's a good walleye?
I mean, you could typically get 25 to 30 inches, and that's a pretty good size walleye.
How heavy?
Like anywhere from 8 to 10 pounds.
Okay, it's a good size fish.
Yeah, it is.
And the bass?
The bass anywhere from like typical is like 3 to 4 pounds.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard much about that Top Dog freshwater spearfishing tournament.
No, I haven't.
Do you know Mike McGuire?
I do. Yeah. Yep.
So Mike and a couple other guys started that. It's called Top Dog Spearfishing Tournament. It's like a kind of like that online, measure it and then record it. So actually 3 years ago, I shot the world record smallmouth.
Okay.
And I get a lot of hassle because everybody still tried to beat it and nobody's beat it yet. So, but yeah, I'll talk a little bit later about that. The experience of that. It was pretty cool.
So you got in, you started hooking around with a three prong Hawaiian sling or pole spear, and you were smashing these carp, and you sort of found a natural sort of fit there by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and actually, because kind of growing up, a lot of my buddies would fly fish, and I would try to get into it, but I'm like, I don't have enough patience for this. Like to sit there and watch your indicator, wait till it hits, and then you're throwing the fly rod up to hook the fish, and I'm like, I can't do this. So once my buddy showed me how to kind of get the gist of actually spearfishing, I kind of went full board into it.
Yeah,
I ended up buying after that trip, I ended up buying my first spear gun.
Yeah, right.
At a local dive shop out here. It was a JBL Lightning 22.
I've heard JBL have sort of gone through a bit of a renaissance, though. I heard that new JBL guns, some of them are actually pretty good, but some of their old stuff is sort of not considered like of great quality.
No, I mean, I lived in Hawaii for like a couple months for work, and I went to go pull it back, and where the butt of the gun's connected to like the actual shaft, it actually snapped in half because it's aluminum.
Oh, okay. How did it shoot? Did it get the job done?
Yeah, for sure got the job done. It was just nothing it's not like anything I'm using right now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. These days you're sponsored by Hatch Amiro, aren't you?
Yeah, Hatch Custom Spear Guns.
Cool. And Mike makes those guns, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. Kind of funny story about how I met Mike. So it was actually when I was living in Hawaii, I broke my gun, and I don't know if you know John Dornelius.
I'm kind of familiar with him. Like I follow him on social. I haven't interacted with him much.
So he actually lined me up with a guy out in Hawaii. His name's Mike Jutt. And Mike Jutt lined me up with Hatch. And then I actually sell security systems for a living.
Okay.
So I ended up selling Mike a security system and just became friends. And then fast forward 2 years later, he's like, "Hey, I don't have any freshwater divers." And we just kind of stayed in contact. So I'm one of Mike's first freshwater divers.
Yeah, nice. Well, you're definitely an ambassador for freshwater spearing. Like I said, like your Instagram at Big Jake Lords, like there's just a ton of good vibes on there. Like it's mostly spearfishing, but you've always got some good things to say about stuff, and so it's cool. I can see why sponsors are interested in following you. I had a couple of fan questions. Ragnarok Lee, first of all, he says Big Jake is a straight G. So, if Austin, he says, just while we're talking about fisheries and stuff like local, like freshwater fisheries, Austin says, how do you recommend approaching local departments of natural resources for opening more spearfishing regulations in your area? he says he's currently residing in Ohio, where only trash fish are allowed to be speared. And he says there was supposed to be a meeting in March, but it got cancelled due to the COVID lockdown. But so, what's your advice to Austin?
So I think just kind of working with Fish and Game and just kind of showing that spearfishing isn't bad. Just because, I mean, even here in Utah, we try and get more and more lakes opened each year, and I feel like we do a pretty good job at it. But just kind of show them that, like, we're not out there shooting every single big fish. To be honest, I'll go out and dive for 3 hours, and I'll see 5 fish and shoot 2 of them.
Yep.
So it's not like the ocean where you're seeing schools of fish. Where going out and diving a couple hours, you're going to see, like, if you see 10 fish, like, that's an incredible day.
Yeah. Do you think, like, there's less nutrients and stuff for life in freshwater environments? So obviously, there's less oxygen in the water, and is that part of the reason why there is less?
Yeah, I also think it gets fished pretty hard.
Yeah.
By guys on boats. But then I feel like Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, like these big mountain fisheries, they're really good about going out and stocking these lakes with fish.
And you had a point there about trash fish before. Which fish are trash to you?
To be honest, I don't think there is anything. I feel like you can eat any fish.
Yeah. Like tilapia are an invasive here that people make comments about. Some people really like to eat them though, and they just have a lot of it's like there's no trash fish, there's only trash cooks, is a saying I've heard. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So there's actually, it's funny you say that. There's actually a lake out here it's on the Nevada Utah border. It's called Blue Lake, and it actually has tilapia in it. And it's a natural spring lake that stays about 68 to 72 degrees year round.
Wow.
So we'll go out there and shoot tilapia and pacu.
Yep. So the temperatures of the different lake systems you've got around, obviously that plays a significant part in which species sort of thrive in those environments. Is that what you see?
Yeah. So right now, until I would say the beginning to middle of December, what I have found is you're going to find smallmouth bass, rainbow trout, cutthroats, brook trout, brown trout, because a lot of them are starting to spawn. I mean, not the bass, but a lot of the trout are starting to spawn. You'll sometimes find them in like their beds swimming around, and a lot of people say it's cheating, but hey, I'm underwater.
You're freediving on a breath holder. As long as
exactly.
As long as you're not taking more than the environment can handle, I think it's still
and just like regular fishing, with freshwater, there's daily limits, which we obviously abide by.
Getting back into your learning journey, freediving. Have you done a course? Did you have any troubles with learning to hold your breath? What was sort of that journey like for you? So
actually, it's kind of funny you say that. Is I don't know if do you know Derek Laval?
No.
So he was Kurt Chambers' like freedive partner or spearfishing partner back in the day. And he lives out in Hawaii, and he started making his own wetsuit. So he made me a wetsuit, and he's like super down to earth, kind of showed me the ropes, breath holds, bottom time. And like, I'm still shocked at, like, if you talk to anybody in Hawaii that like actually spearfishes religiously, they'll know who Derek Laval is, because the dude has an unreal breath hold.
Yeah, right.
But he, I actually still remember it. He's like, hey, right here, there's a drop right here that's 90 feet. I'm going to be right here on your side. Just push yourself to do it. He's like, if you can get to 60 feet, it's awesome. So I got to 60 feet, and I'm like, I've still got some breath hold. So I just kept on going. and I ended up going down to like 92 feet.
Ah, jeepers.
And then the crazy thing is I turned to my left and he's just like hanging out like nothing's happening. And I'm like, and it just kind of blew my mind.
I think you'll agree with me when I say that contractions suck. But what if I told you there was a way to relax and steadily push them back, and to do so safely? Freediving for spearfishers at howtofreedive.com will help you to extend your breath hold, understand your body better, and put you in a better position when you actually get to go out spearfishing. It's not a program or a course for noobs, as it's definitely something for more advanced spearos who've had some sort of diving under their belt and understand basic spearfishing safety. But it is perfect for spearos who want a guided program with videos, a clear process to follow, and a set goal. It's definitely got that. It's a 28-day program that you can stretch out a little bit longer if you haven't got the time, but it's this formulaic approach to get you to hold your breath in a dry static for 5 minutes. It's just a dry breath hold training that's actually achievable, because most of the time we start with dry training, and there are a few good apps out there as well. However, without sort of this process to guide us through, we get lost and we fall apart and the discipline goes away. Anyway, you can get started for free. Check it out at howtofreedive.com. If you do want to purchase it, use the code NoobSpearo, but you can do the first couple of days free. Let's check it out at howtofreedive.com. Again, use the code NoobSpearo if you decide to purchase.
You seem to have like a pretty resilient sort of nature, I guess. Like I saw on your Instagram that, you know, a couple of your buddies decided that, you know, they were going to do a marathon with 35 days notice, and you just had a crack.
Yeah, that was an experience in alone. It was literally the stupidest thing I've probably done.
But I mean, the type of guy that will do a marathon with 35 days notice is, you know, like obviously you take a different sort of mindset into spearfishing as well, maybe. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I think just my lifestyle is just life in general, and I've got an awesome wife, but I kind of look, you know, instead of the negative in things with like the world, you know, these days, I try and keep everything pretty positive. Like, and in my mind, like kind of my life philosophy is, you know, what do you have to lose? What do you have to gain? To where, you know, if I'm going out spearfishing in 35-degree water, you know, if I didn't get in, then in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm never going to know what happened.
Yeah, right.
I'm never going to know that end result. And same thing with like the marathon is, so I was doing a program called 75 Hard, where I would do 2 workouts a day. One had to be outside.
Well, that's
45 minutes.
That's Andy Frisella, is
Yeah.
that it? Yeah.
So yeah, the Andy Frisella 75 Hard.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it. I actually ended up completing it. I ended up losing like 58 pounds in the process of it.
Man, good effort. Solid.
You know, and ran a marathon, or finished a marathon. And that marathon was it was crazy, because 11 of the miles, I'm not joking you, were on complete like sand dune sand.
As if a marathon's not hard enough without that.
I mean, doing 75 Hard, it just kind of teaches you that kind of mind over matter.
Yeah.
That your mind's a lot stronger, you know, than what people think. And it actually kind of ties into spearfishing, because when people are like, I mean, I've literally gone out with an axe, chopped a hole in the ice while guys are right next to me ice fishing, and they're like begging me not to get in. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go dive down and like see what I can find. And, you know, they're kind of like, holy crap. Like, is this guy really doing this?
Yeah.
Like, should we call the, you know, the ambulance right now?
Being a bigger unit too, they're probably worried about how they're going to get you out of there if they need to resuscitate you.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny when, you know, even on Instagram, people are like, oh, how much weight do you have on? I'm like, enough to get down. So
I want to get into it in the veteran's fault. And I'm thinking let's go there now. Like this, like cold and relaxation, they don't really play that well together. But, Eric Keener says, how in the world does Jake stay warm in those cold lakes in a thin wetsuit? I think he wears like a 3 mil. And, for this Veterans Vault, you and I were going to have a little bit of a chat about diving in unrealistic conditions in cold water, snowing, negative outside temperatures and stuff like that. So let's do it now. So relaxation and being extremely cold, how does that work together? How do you make that happen?
I feel like when, right before I get in the water, I'll take my mask on, do the MDR, and like, I feel like the colder the water is, I feel like the lower I can get my heart rate.
Mm.
And I feel like anybody that spearfishes does their, kind of mindset or, not yoga, but their relaxation to kind of get into the mood of spearfishing and, being super calm.
Yep.
But I mean, when I'm out diving with buddies that are somewhat experienced, I'll go to, 45, 50, 60 feet. But a lot of the time, like, it sounds crazy, but a lot of people aren't willing to get in the water with me at those temperatures. So it probably is stupid, but I mean, I'll go by myself, but I'll, like, in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I cannot dive past 30 feet.
Well, I'm not going to hassle you about that because I've been known to dive alone, in the past as well. I now prefer to dive with buddies, like good buddies that work in as a team. But, each to their own. I'm not going to hassle you about that today. But, like, when you're getting into this super cold water, like, it sounds like your mindset is more to just think about the cold kind of as something that gives you help. Like, it doesn't sound like you're not really worried about the cold at all. Like, it seems to be a real mindset you have. Yeah,
I mean, so I was actually talking to a guy about it today, and it's funny. Like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're crazy to get in." I'm like, "Oh, for sure, I'm a complete crazy ass." But bottom line is like, I'll have a brain freeze and I'm not kidding you. I'll literally have a brain freeze for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And once you kind of get past that, like, I can stay in 36 to 38 degree water for 3 hours.
That's pretty good going, man.
So I use that 5 mil that Hatch makes, and then I've got they're not spearfishing gloves. They're actually duck hunting gloves.
Okay.
They're 3 millimeters, but then they have a fleece lining inside.
Okay.
And those will actually, so that's what I've actually kind of found is that the things that are going to get cold first are your feet and your hands.
Yeah.
And if those stay warm, then I feel like also your head, if it stays warm, then I feel like you can be good for, as long as your body can kind of handle it.
There's a whole, group of people that are kind of obsessed with cold. Like, I think Wim Hof kind of brought it back to the forefront, and people talk about a number of physiological benefits, such as improved circulation, deeper sleep. You get a spike in your energy levels. It can reduce inflammation in your body. Some people think it helps with depression and boosting your immune system. There's all sorts of sort of anecdotal sort of wisdom around this, immersion in extreme cold. What's your experience with that?
Well, I know I don't have a problem sleeping. You can ask my wife about that. And I haven't really looked too much into that. I just, like I said, I'm just super humbled to be on this podcast. And I mean, the fact that you get Cameron, Kirk O'Connell, and all those big guys that are Justin Lee, Ryan Myers, those guys are my heroes. Mike Hatcher, Shane Cables, those are the guys that are, like, in my eyes, are like true spear fishermen.
Yeah.
Or true Spearos that are just. But as far as cold water, in all honesty, it's a mindset. So it in your head, if you go into it, and I think just anything in life, if you go into it and you almost trick yourself that you can't do it, then you're for sure not going to be able to do it. But then if you almost just kind of trick your mind that, hey, mind over matter, I'm going to do this. But then also like, it's gotten to a point where I love spearfishing so much that I'm okay to go local and go dive in cold water. But yeah, I would love to dive warm water year round, but that's obviously not my case.
So when you like, it does sound like you've kind of just made friends with the cold, like, but when you first get in the water and you were talking about getting that ice cream headache and, like it makes all of my muscles tense when I get, like in freezing water, and there's a real strong reaction. Like our bodies naturally kind of fight the cold. What process do you go through in your mind to kind of get through that first, 20 minutes that you were talking about?
So actually, like within the first 20 minutes, I'm actually just going to be kicking around, trying to get my body warmed up, and I actually I'll probably drink a gallon of water.
Okay.
And I'll pee through I'll pee in my wetsuit to stay warm.
Okay.
Like it's funny as funny as it sounds.
Yeah. You must smell fantastic when you get out after 3 hours of swimming around in your pee.
But 3 hours swimming around my pee and then driving to a different spot and being in a wetsuit for 12 hours. Like, oh man, it's honestly probably like one of the worst smells ever. Like I have to take 2 showers just to get the smell out.
How do you get the smell out of your wetsuit?
So I just wash it and hang dry it
in a washing machine or by hand. Okay.
Just in a washing machine, then I hang dry it.
I found when I machine washed my wetsuits, sometimes the neoprene, you've got to hang them obviously inside out. But if you store them or anything like in that state, sometimes the neoprene, it's like it rebonds to itself. And then when you peel it apart, it's like it'll, sometimes it'll tear holes in the suit. Have you found that?
No, I haven't gotten any holes in my wetsuits.
Okay, cool. Well, you wouldn't want to. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
30-degree water, you don't really want a hole in your suit.
You get that hole and, yeah, you're done.
Yeah, it's game over. Like, we've talked a little bit about the cold and sort of your process with it. Have you always been like that with cold, or is this something that you've developed?
No, I feel like I've always been pretty good with cold. I grew up, skiing and going out with Boy Scouts and building snow caves and sleeping in them at night. And like I said, I'm a bigger guy. So I actually, like, when I sweat, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can handle the cold a lot better than, most people. And I feel like that helps a ton.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, cool. So you got started in this lake and you managed to spear a couple of carp. I mean, moving on from sort of those first early days, when was it the fish that you sort of shot like that everything clicked and you just thought, this is what I do, like I'm going to spearfish forever? Was there a fish that really stands out that helped cement that for you?
Yeah. So it was 3 years ago. I mean, it was kind of funny. It was right around this time of year, and I got up to the lake. There was 2 people fishing on the shore, and before I had seen like these smallmouth bass, and there was a state record in Utah that was like 3.5 pounds. Okay. And I had my mindset. I'm like, I'm going to find this fish and I'm going to shoot it, and it's going to be the state record for Utah. I had no idea that there were world records for spearfishing at all. So I'm putting my wetsuit on. It's like 36 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And right before I get in the water, it starts snowing.
Oh, wow.
And I'll always remember that. So I get in the water, these like 2 fishermen that on the shore, they're like wearing full like winter coats. And they're like, they asked me, they're like, are you really getting in the water right now? And I'm like, yeah, I got to get this. So I ended up getting in the water. I ended up diving down to, I think it was like 15 to 17 feet.
Yeah.
And I see this bass, and I'm like, that's a big bass. Ended up shooting him actually right through the gill, through the mouth.
Yep.
So like you wouldn't even tell if a shaft went through it.
Oh, nice.
Ended up getting him out. Ended up weighing him just on my I also didn't know that like the certified scale was a thing.
Yep.
So I had like a little kitchen, like a kitchen scale that you weigh meat
Yep.
that I took from my house. And it ended up being 5 pounds, 14 ounces. So then I called one of my buddies and I was like, hey, I think I shot the state record. And he's like, how big was it? And I was like, well, on my scale, it weighed 5 pounds, 14 ounces. And he's like, that's not a state record. That's a world record.
Jeepers.
And I'm like, a world record? I'm like, what do you mean? And then he sends me like kind of the website.
IUSA.
So then I drive. Yeah. IUSA. So then I drive down and I have to find a certified scale. And I'm asking him like, where do you find a certified scale? And he's like, oh, like a post office. So I'm walking into a post office wearing my wetsuit, wearing my wetsuit, holding this. I have this smallmouth bass in a cooler, and they're like, I'm like, hey, I got to get this certified. It could be a world record. And I slapped this smallmouth bass on the scale, and there was probably about 10 people in the post office. And everybody was like dumbfounded at like what they are seeing right now. So that's kind of like my fish to remember for the rest of my life. But
yeah. Did you have to keep that fish, like freeze it and or could you eat it?
No, so I kept it on ice for a day, and then I actually took it to a taxidermy, and he ended up mounting it for me.
Yeah, nice.
So I did a live skin mount with him.
Have you got a photo of that mount?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
All right, sick. I might put it in today's show notes. So if people go to noobspearo.com/Big Jake, I'll have a picture of it in there so people can get an idea about that fish.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Hey, before you mention like smoking fish, and like you talked about a couple of fish that are good, like fish that people sometimes consider as trash, like carp and stuff like that. How do you smoke them? And just walk us through that process.
Yeah, so there is kind of a process in it. So with the carp, I usually will smoke one that's a little bit smaller, just because the bigger ones are they've been eating trash for quite some time. So I'll get like I'll get a carp that's, a huge carp is 30, 32 inches, where I'll get like a medium sized carp that's like 20 inches, and I'll fillet it.
Okay.
And then with the fillet, I'll brine it for 24 hours in like salt, water, and pepper and lemon pepper.
Okay.
And then I'll take out so I'll wait 24 hours, take it out, wash it off, and then throw the fillet on the smoker and cook it at 220 degrees.
Jeez.
Smoked for 8 hours. And every hour, I have lemon pepper, pineapple juice, and lemon juice.
Okay.
And every hour, I'm going to be brushing the fillet of carp.
The wet brine with the Yep.
So the wet brine onto it every hour until it's done smoking.
Okay. Cool.
So that way, just because they're super, almost kind of a gamey taste.
All right.
But yeah, I'll do that for 8 hours, and actually it comes out pretty tasty. Like I gave it to my father-in-law and brother, and they actually thought it was trout. It was so good.
So I noticed, like in your Insta, you link up like Camp Chef smokers. What are they? Is that the smoke you use?
Yeah, so it's a company out of Utah.
Okay.
They they're very generous to me, and they so it's actually it's a smoker that can also be a grill, and then they do like a gas sear box on the side for doing reverse sears.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
So they'll get up to, like when you're grilling, they'll get up to 500 degrees, and then they have like low smoke, high smoke. But yeah, it almost makes like a bad cook into a really good cook.
Sounds good for me. Do you use chips, like wood chips and stuff?
So actually pellets.
Yeah. Okay, it's a pellet burner.
Yeah.
So it does pellets and gas in that.
So it does pellets, and then it has a gas for the sear box on the side.
Okay, cool. All right. And I noticed that brown sugar was conspicuously absent. You don't put sugar on them?
I don't, no. You recommend it?
Oh, I don't know. Like, it just seems pretty sort of par for the course, if you like, with a lot of smokes. But no, I like hearing different styles about doing it. So, you're always really cool. But yeah, maybe try some brown sugar. Just like sometimes you can just use straight brown sugar and that's it. And but yeah, everyone has a crack differently. Like
I'll have to try that.
or you use salt first and then your brown sugar layer on top. But yeah, I'm by no means an expert. I don't even have a smoker. My mate Matt, he does a lot of it for me. So, but yeah, that's very interesting to hear. And I think like the benefits of smoking is like you can turn fish that sometimes people think are trash into really really tasty meals for your family. So
for sure.
What about hunting techniques? Like, obviously you've made friends with a lot of fly fishermen, you were saying, over the years, and they really like you and follow you on social media. And
I wish they liked me.
So why don't they like you?
Because I'm shooting their beautiful fish that they want to catch on a rod and reel.
Yeah. There's a delicate relationship we have with line fishermen, and I'm not sure about fly fishermen because I haven't encountered many. But what's the reason for the latest sort of Big Jake versus fly fishermen?
A lot of them are all about catch and release.
Yep.
And in my eyes, I'm like, why would you catch something that sweet and release it?
Well, you release it. You release it into your belly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of people message me on Instagram and other, Facebook, and they're like, how can you kill such a beautiful fish? And I just the way I respond, I'm like, well, I'm not going to eat the fish while it's alive.
You can't eat a photo, buddy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but back to hunting techniques. What's your favorite sort of freshwater species to hunt, and how do you do it effectively?
So, I actually really like hunting walleye. So they'll be in in the rocks and in the kind of debris, fallen trees is what I found. And the reason I like hunting walleye is because it makes me almost feel like I'm hunting in the ocean, because I'm like swimming through these trees and then kind of going back to it, like freshwater fish they're really like ocean fish. They're curious. So you can get in there like, I don't know if you know Shane Cables.
No,
he's on Team Hatch, but he's got some great videos of him on the bottom just throwing up sand. And I'm like, look, in my head, I'm like, let's try this with bass because they're curious. So I'll start throwing up some sand to see if any fish come in. Sure enough, these smallmouth bass start coming in. Easier to shoot.
Yep.
So, but as far as trout, what I've kind of found is right now is the kokanee are spawning right now, and it's illegal to catch even like with rod and reel.
Okay.
For kokanee in Utah. But what I found is when you're diving around the kokanee, there's typically going to be trout around them.
Oh, okay.
And I think that the trout almost in my mind are thinking the same thing. They're like, we're just going to get caught and released because, we're right here next to the kokanee and nobody's going to fish right next to us.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they've got a shaft in their head.
Is freshwater similar to saltwater in the fact that, like, when you find an aggregation of fish, whether it's bait or something else, you'll quite often find a few species. It'll be a hotspot for quite a few different species.
Yeah. So if you typically find like some kokanee, you'll typically find like some cutthroat or some rainbows in there, and which is kind of what most spear fishermen are kind of after if they're going after trout.
Okay.
But yeah, same thing. Like with trout, it's a little bit different than like walleye and bass. Where if you see like walleye and bass, you can, see them from the surface and dive down on them.
Yep.
Or with trout, you kind of have to sit on the bottom and kind of wait for them. And if you see them, you're going to get lucky and just shoot them.
So let's just say like you're swimming along, like surface of lake, and you find an aggregation of these, what was it, coca? What was the name? Kokanee. And you find, like maybe there's half a dozen fish there, and there's going to be some fish around it. What's your approach from swimming over top and finding this aggregation? What's your approach then? What will you generally do?
So I'll typically, make a not a bottom, like all the way to the bottom dive, but like down to like 10 feet just to kind of see if I can see any, because the kokanee are a super like red, where the rainbow trout are, underwater. They have that silver look to them underwater.
Yep.
So you just kind of get down to about, what I have found personally is about down to 10 feet. If it's like, if you're in 30, 40 feet water, and then once you get down to that, once you kind of see them, and then you'll dive a little bit deeper to see if there's any bigger ones down there.
Okay.
And you can typically find them.
So you do a little scouting dive, assess if there's like the target fish underneath them, and then what you head up on the surface and just get a good sort of nice relax, breathe up, and then and then do your bottom dive.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And with these aggregations, are you mostly hunting from the bottom, or will you shoot something on the way down?
Mostly hunting from the bottom.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if I see something on the way down, I'm for sure going to shoot it.
And
because like I said, like if you're spearfishing and you see, in a 2 to 3 hour span, if you see, between walleye, bass, and
trout or kokanee.
Trout, you're, if you see 10 of them during this time, I feel like it's a pretty good day.
Yeah, righto. Okay, so you get on the bottom. What's your typical structure? I mean, is there a lot of variation, and do you hide in it? Does that work?
Yeah. So you'll get a lot of rock, not like huge boulders, and there's obviously no coral or reef that you can hide in, but I mean, you can get there in the rocks and just kind of sit there for a minute to 90 seconds and just kind of wait for fish to swim by, and once you see them. But yeah, it's typically going to be rocks or like falling down trees.
Yeah, perfect. All right, nice. All right, and what spear gun or spear guns are you using? What's your setup?
Yeah, so I actually right now I'm using a Hatch 110 centimeter. Let's see. So this one, so it's a 100 centimeter Euro enclosed track.
Okay.
So, but before I was using a 100 centimeter Gremlin that Hatch makes, and then he made me a enclosed track.
Nice.
Euro, and it's like a game changer.
And you'd be able to use quite a narrow diameter shaft there, because your maximum fish size is probably not much over. Do you ever shoot anything over 15 pound in the lakes?
Oh, heavens no.
Yeah, cool. So what are you using, like a 6.5 mil, or do you know the diameter of the shaft?
I'm using a 9 and 32.
Yep. Let me cross that over. 9 and 32 to millimeters. Let's have a look. 7 mil. Yep. Okay, I think so. Oh, I don't know, actually. All right, yep, it's pretty typical. Yeah, righto. And how much overhang have you got? Are you running a shorter overhang off the end of the barrel?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Okay.
So I've got probably 7 to 10 inches off the barrel.
Okay, cool. Yep. Nice. And are you running a reel or rig line and float?
Just a rig line. I feel like, listening to a lot of your podcasts and having a reel in freshwater isn't, I mean, if you're not shooting a fish over, 15 pounds, you can pull it right up to the surface.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but also you're shooting, and, if you shoot it, it's not going to get away.
Nice.
But like a, saltwater fish will just run.
Are the lake species, are they soft flesh? Like, do they tear off a lot?
They do. Yeah. So I'm typically trying to shoot it gill head area. I mean, like every spear fisherman would, just because there's like you shoot it in the middle, you're losing a lot of meat.
Yeah, it's particularly on smaller fish, I think.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool, man. Oh, that's interesting. I'd love to get over there one day and just have a crack. Like, it sounds like an interesting and different environment. But if you love spearing, then I'm sure it's just as fun as the saltwater.
For sure. Oh yeah, 100%.
Simple, accurate, deadly. Use the code NOOB, N-O-O-B, and save $30 on any spear gun for a limited time only. Go to killshotspearguns.com, check them out for yourself. Handmade in the Florida Keys by Ed Martin. Use the code NOOB, N-O-O-B, or head into the shop and say, "Crikey, mate." And apparently Ed will hook you up with a $30 discount on any timber spear gun. Get your hands on one, killshotspearguns.com. This episode of the Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by the world's greatest spearfishing magazine, Spearing Magazine. There are news and reviews for the latest spearfishing equipment and gadgets inside. There's practical how-to and DIY type articles. There's spearing adventures from crazy noobers like you from all over the world. And it's a magazine that you can pick up or you can look at, and if you've got the digital subscription, you can flick through and let it inspire your next spearfishing adventure, even if you're having a dry run. Keep the stoke alive. Check it out at spearingmagazine.com. If you're away from the good old USA, though, check out the international subscription. That's at spearingmagazine.com. All right, man, what about funny stuff? It sounds like you do a fair bit of solo diving, so you miss out on some of the laughs that you can have with good dive buddies. But what are some of the funny things, or one of the funny things that's happened to you spearing?
I was actually spearfishing with a buddy, and we were just regular dive. We had, I think I had 2 trout on my belt, and all of a sudden, it literally scared the crap out of me. A giant beaver swam right next to me. I thought it was a dog.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's this dog doing?" And next thing you know, it like pops up on the water, starts paddling.
Yeah.
But that was pretty funny. And then also I was by myself, and like I'll never forget this experience. So it was actually, I'm getting in my wetsuit. The temperature outside is 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's, what is that, Celsius? Negative something. Cold.
Yeah.
So, but then the water temperature was like 45 degrees.
Yep.
But it was like probably a quarter mile walk from like where my car was parked to the water.
It's negative 10 degrees Celsius.
So it's a negative 10 degrees Celsius, 15 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So I ended up shooting 1 trout, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I go on, get out of the water. And from the time I'm walking out of the water back to my car, my wetsuit had completely froze. The fish was completely frozen, and my hair was like, it was like frosted tips.
Yeah.
Well,
the good thing is you wouldn't need like a cooler box. You could just throw it in a cardboard box. And, obviously a plastic box would be better because then you don't have wet, fishy cardboard. But, you wouldn't need a cooler.
No. Yeah. I just throw it in like a plastic bin, and,
away you go. Nice, man. Jeepers, that's a cold day spearfishing.
Oh yeah. That's a day that I'll always remember. So I've also experienced like nothing crazy, but like moose. Those have been kind of scary moments, just because moose are not the most friendly mammals.
Yeah, for sure.
They've been known to attack humans. But I'll be in the water and I pop up and there's a moose right there on the shore, and I'm like, holy shit, like what's going to happen right now? Yeah. And yeah.
Because they swim too, don't they? Like quite long distances at times as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they're a big animal too. Like, geez, that'd be scary.
Bigger than a horse.
Ugh. So beavers and moose, that's what you got to watch out for there.
Yeah, I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about seals. I have to worry about beavers.
Worst nightmare: a beaver riding on the back of a moose.
Oh man, don't even talk about it.
It's different style of spearfishing, isn't it? It's a really different
Oh
environment that
yeah.
I'm used to, but it's
Oh
cool to
yeah.
hear about. All right, man. So we've talked about your spear gun, and you've talked a bit about the wetsuits that you're using. What about the rest of your dive gear? What else are you using? What's
Right.
So you talked about your gloves as well, like with the
Yeah.
lined.
So it's a company called Glacier Glove.
Okay.
So it's actually like a glove that people use for duck hunting to
Okay.
put out the decoys.
Yep.
So I'll use that, and then for my booties, I use a Argo's 4 millimeter,
Okay.
which those have been like a lifesaver,
Nice.
and like that's for cold water, and then I use a 2 millimeter for when the water's a little bit warmer.
Okay. Cool. What about fins?
Right now I'm using the Hatch custom carbon fiber fins.
Okay. Cool. What are they like?
They're good. So,
Yes.
I mean, I'm going from I had the Mare's razor fin, plastic fins.
Yep. Yep.
From going from those to carbon is like night and day difference.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the biggest, like, sometimes like you do a dive by dive comparison, the performance doesn't seem huge, but it's like when you get out at the end of the day, like if you've used carbons all day and then you try on a pair of plastics, they just feel awful, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I actually let my buddy use my carbon fins, and I use his plastic fins. And I'm like, dude, how do you swim with these on? Like, you almost feel like you can't even move your feet in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, actually. So I'm super humbled to be a part of Team Hatch Freshwater.
Yeah, nice.
Freshwater edition.
You got a couple of other little sponsors there too, I see. Or they are on your Instagram. Are they sponsors?
Like,
There was Pelican Coolers and Bubba Blade,
yeah.
I think. Yeah?
Yeah, Pelican Coolers, they're super generous.
Bubba
Yeah,
Blade.
Bubba Blade, they're in my opinion the best of the best fillet knives you know out there.
Where are they made? And like, give us a little bit of an idea about them.
From my understanding, they're out of Missouri.
Okay.
But yeah, they actually make a set where you can where it's got like a flex knife, a fillet, not like a super thin for like boning fish, and you can just pop in the knife into a handle and just switch out the whole time.
Yeah, sick.
I know Cameron Kirk O'Connell's a big fan of them.
Yeah, nice. All right, cool.
And then I messaged Monster Energy.
Okay.
And they've been really generous to me.
Yeah, sweet.
So I always tell my buddies that, you know, I just tell them I'm not even good at spearfishing. I'm just amazing at marketing.
I think the thing that's different about your social media profile is like there's a lot of positivity in there, and there's a lot of encouragement for people to develop more resilience and, you know, just take things on. You know, like a lot of our problems are mental, and I think, you know, one of the biggest things about you is, you know, you've pointed that out with this cold water. You know, you love spearfishing so much that you've just been prepared to take the cold water on, and a lot of people don't have that. You know, that ability to put themselves out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but what I've kind of found is like I'm a bigger dude. Like I'm 6'2", 290 pounds.
Yep.
And a lot of people in their head, they're like, oh, I'm obese. You know, I can't do that. And like in my head, I'm like, I'm obese. Like, why shouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
You know, like it just, I guess it just kind of pushes me to, you know, be that different person to go above and beyond than, you know, what everybody in their typical, like in their head is like, and maybe that's why people are kind of shocked when they're like, you're diving in what temperature, wearing what wetsuit? I'm like, yeah, like I'm just trying to make the best of what I have.
Yeah. No, awesome, man. Love it.
So,
and gratitude goes a long way. So awesome, man. We're going to wrap out with some faster paced questions. It's Spearo Q&A. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. What is the single best piece of advice you've been given for spearfishing?
Is probably the best single is you can't shoot what you can't see.
Nice. All right, what's been the single best resource for improving your spearfishing?
Actually, just doing practicing breath holds out of the water, like at the gym or laying on your bed,
Okay.
just to get those lungs stretched out.
Nice. All right. Who is the best person to go spearfishing with and why?
Me.
Solo. All right, cool. Two more questions, Jake.
No, I've got two buddies. Nick Spilker, who lives down in St. George, Utah. He's one of my dive buddies, and another one is Tanner Halford, who I introduced him to spearfishing up here in northern Utah, Salt Lake City area, and he absolutely loves it. And I think he loves it just almost as much as me, because we show each other, like, even shooting it. Like, I think that's like my prized position at this point, is hanging out with friends and going and taking them spearfishing. And once they shoot a fish, they are so stoked that it's like, it gets my stoke like above and beyond. I'm like, dude, this is way better than shooting a world record. Like, I'm bringing my buddies spearfishing in fresh water that's like, it's freezing cold water, so they know what I'm going through. Yeah, and then they're shooting a fish. There's actually a picture on my Instagram where there's three of us. It's snowing outside. It's like, I think the water's like 43 to 44 degrees. Yeah. We all end up shooting some trout, and we are all just so stoked because we're all together and we're all miserable. Like, man. So, but it's I think that's like kind of what I've kind of found in the last couple of years is spearfishing with buddies and seeing them shoot fish for the first time. And it's just like, it brings them so much joy, and it brings me joy watching them.
That's sick, Jake. Hey, on that note, man, I'm going to wrap up this episode. Where can people come and find you and connect with you and check out some of your adventures?
So they can hit me up on Instagram at Big Jake Lords.
Sick. All right, Big Jake, it's been mad chatting with you, man. I've had an absolute ball. You were exactly the person I thought you'd be when I've been following you along, and it's cool to connect, man, and finally get this thing done. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, Nuba, I hope you enjoyed today's chat with Big Jake. I know I did. He's an awesome dude. I love following along on his adventures. If I haven't said that enough today, I really encourage you to check him out on Instagram. In 2 weeks, we are off to Hawaii to join Ryan Myers. And from Ryan Myers' expedition, a very well-known deep diver, avid hunter, underwater hunter I'm talking about, and just a cool guy. He's very good at explaining things. His YouTube channel's full of awesome videos where he breaks down hunts and stuff like that. I really enjoyed our chat, and I want you to as well. Come back in 2 weeks. Subscribe to the Spearo podcast wherever you are in the world. Hope you're enjoying it and just frothing on it and getting out spearing as well, and not just stuck in a dry old spell, because that does happen from time to time. But anyway, 2 weeks, Ryan Myers. If you love the show, jump on patreon.com/Spearo and become a Patreon listener. I'm out. Have you ever wanted to slay fish with a weapon of your own creation? Good news for you. Episode 123 of the Spearo podcast with Ed Martin from Killshot Spear Guns lays out the pattern and the plan to help you build your own weapon of death and lay waste to fish with something with your own maker's stamp on it. And along with that, go to today's major sponsor website, neptonics.com. Go to the Spear Gun Builder page and select your components to build that magical weapon, and use the code NOOB10 to save a further 10% off on anything in your shopping basket. So visit neptonics.com, use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off store-wide. Interesting message today if you are a budget-conscious Spearo. head to spearfishing.com.au, go to the clearance tab. There's a whole bunch of magic deals and bargains in there. Use the code NOSPEARO to save a further $20 on every purchase over $200. That's right, spearfishing.com.au, clearance tab. You'll thank me later.